Hey there, my name's Nate Amadon. I'm the CEO of an Agile consulting firm, but I'm also Lieutenant Colonel and C-17 pilot in the Air Force Reserves. And I get asked this question all the time by transitioning veterans. Like, what actually is Agile? Why do I care? So in today's video, I'm going to give you an overview of what Agile is and try to relate it to your military experience. But before I jump into what Agile is, I think we should go back to the beginning of software development and talk a little bit about how we used to develop software. So teams and organizations used to build software like they would build a bridge, and that's called Waterfall. Now, Waterfall is really important for you to understand because that term is often used in relation with the term Agile. So how does a Waterfall project work? Essentially, organizations would come up with an idea for a new software product. They would plan out every single feature that they think the market would like, spend months and months analyzing and planning and coming up with the design for really how the entire software system would work. Then they would build it all at once, test it all at once, and then deploy it all at once into the market. Now, this just didn't work very well for software, because a lot of times they were guessing on what features the market actually wanted. In addition, software development is really complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, and when you try to build it and integrate it, things come up. And so the software companies were finding it was taking months and months for them to actually get, sometimes even years, to actually get their applications and their products out to the market. They'd run into building problems. They'd run into integration issues with the technology. And then when they got it out there, they weren't actually sure if the market wanted it, because maybe they didn't. So in 2001, a bunch of leaders got together and created the Agile Manifesto. And the Agile Manifesto, and really Agile in general, is just a philosophy. It's a set of principles, not specific practices. I like to think of Agile like an umbrella. And underneath that umbrella is a series of frameworks and more prescriptive on how you should operate. But what Agile really means is that we value these things on the left more than we value the things on the right. And this makes sense to us as veterans, or it made sense to me as a veteran. So let's walk through each one and I'll show you why. So Agile says we value individuals and interactions over the processes and tools. It basically says we're a people-focused organization. Software and technology is built by people for people. And as veterans, we understand that people win wars, and we focus on our people a lot. The second Agile principle says that we value working software over comprehensive documentation. And what this really means is that we're not going to spend months and months and months just trying to figure out how it's going to be built. We'd rather just build it and figure it out as we go. Because the plan, well, it never really turns out like organizations thought it would. And as veterans, we get this because we don't overplan for every contingency. Because we know that once it gets out there, or once we start executing, things are going to change. So we don't want to waste that time waste all that time over planning. Now, the third Agile principle says we value customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So organizations, they would want to work with their users or their customers and get feedback and then change based on the feedback. Instead, they used to have to renegotiate every contract for every changing request. And this took a ton of time. And again, as veterans, we get this. We know that decision delays and admin can really slow down a mission. And the final Agile principle, and the one that I think relates most to us as veterans, is that we value responding to change over following a plan. Because things change fast, and you need to respond. Same is true in the military as it is in technology and in the private sector. Like, how many missions have we been on that went exactly as planned? Probably none of them. And so really, these four principles are what Agile is all about. Now, what does that actually look like? The way I try to think about it is Agile really means we do things in a more iterative fashion. We're still going to do the same steps as Waterfall. Teams are still going to plan and design and build and test, but they're just going to do it into smaller chunks and be more flexible in how it's implemented. And the beauty of Agile is that teams can pivot. So if they release a small chunk first, they'll get some feedback and they can change some things. So in practice, what this means is you have to release something of value. So in Agile training and in Agile circles, you'll hear the term minimum viable product. And what that basically means is once we have something of value, we release it to get feedback. We don't wait until everything is built before we release it. This is a common example where a user would say, hey, I want transportation from point A to point B, and they're kind of happy with the skateboard, and through feedback, they're really happy with a car. But honestly, this is kind of a stupid example, because if you wanted a car and I gave you a skateboard, you're not going to be super happy about it. In reality, it looks a lot more like Tesla. So Elon Musk and pretty much everything Elon Musk does is a good example of Agile. And at Tesla, they released a car, and it functioned as a car, and it had some basic functionality. But then they kept getting feedback from their community, and they kept getting more updates, and they would release them wirelessly. So every release was like a new feature or a new enhancement to the car. And at the simplest level, that's what Agile is all about. So why do companies actually use this? Why do they want to release in a more iterative way? Well, like we discussed before, plans never survive first contact with the enemy. Same thing is true in the private sector. Both military and the private sector in software development are in complex domains, and you have to be able to react to changing conditions. The more agile you are, the more you're able to react to changing technology, a changing market, or even changing business priorities. Things move fast. You have to be able to pivot. And Agile also reduces a ton of risk because you find out earlier if your idea or hypothesis of what is valuable to the market is actually valuable. And if you figure out it's not early, you don't waste all the money of trying to build it. And if you figure out it is valuable early, you can reap the benefits of that MVP in the market while you're building the next thing. And the same is true when you integrate, because technology is hard and complicated. So by forcing teams to integrate and release earlier, they get practice making sure all the technology integrates together. It'd be like trying to build a bridge and realizing at the very end that it's not going to work. Well, you would have to reintegrate and rebuild the entire bridge. Same thing is true in software. And how important is communication to us as veterans? Like, we know it's pretty much everything, and if we don't do it right, it could have catastrophic results. Well, communication is just as important in the software domain, especially because software is hard to see. You can't walk a factory floor and see if it's on schedule or behind schedule. It's on someone's computer or it's in a test environment somewhere. So following the Agile principles forces better communication, and iterative development increases reps. And there's a reason we spend so much time in the military on communication and making sure that that's clear and concise. Well, Agile tries to bring that same thought process to the software development realm. And really, for me, the key point on why organizations use and adopt Agile so much is because Agile forces tighter feedback loops. Now, in the military, you may have heard of the term OODA loop. It's a decision framework. It says if you get inside your enemy's decision framework or inside of their OODA loop, then you will win. Now, the private sector, they don't really have enemies, but they have competitors, and those competitors, well, they act a lot like enemies. And so the organization that can hone in on the market value faster and faster than their competitors will win in the marketplace. And it's the same thing for how we integrate. The more feedback we get, the better we are at it. And this makes sense for us in the military. It's why we do so much scenario training. And so ultimately, Agile is really, really valuable. And it's taken off in the private sector, especially around technology and software development. But sometimes they can go too far. And this is where our experience as veterans is really valuable. Just because you're doing Agile and you value the things on the left more than the things on the right, doesn't mean we don't ever do the things on the right. Teams still need processes, they still need some documentation, and honestly, they need a plan of some sort. And as veterans, we lived in the biggest bureaucracy in the world. Like, we know how to navigate all the processes and regulations to actually get things done and add value. Organizations struggle with this, and I think it's the reason as veterans our experience is valuable. And we also understand as veterans that the context you're operating in is everything. It's important to know the soup you're swimming in. Now, technology is the same. Context is going to determine how agile your processes can be. So if you look at this comparison, let's say you're Mark Zuckerberg and you're building Facebook in your dorm room, you're going to be a lot more iterative and a lot more agile than a software development team that's making, let's say, software for a nuclear power plant. Now, both of them are going to adopt a version of agile practices, but they're going to look different based on the context. That's why one size doesn't fit all. And as veterans, we understand context drives our operations. And that's really the key takeaway. Agile is a mindset. It's a set of principles for how to operate inside an organizational context. And when it's applied to software organizations in the right context, it can provide a ton of benefits. And we've done this as veterans. We've operated in complex domains, and we know how to get things done in this world. So if you're on an Agile program or you're looking to get into an Agile program, remember that your experience is valuable. Now, like I said earlier, there's a bunch of frameworks that are under the Agile umbrella. The most popular is Scrum. So in the next video, I'm going to review the Scrum framework and show you how that framework is a lot like how we operated in the military. Thanks for watching, and good luck out there.